and Doetkott Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. This is obviously not Nick Duckett, as you can see the Avalanche banner in the background, the Avalanche hoodie. Ladies and gentlemen, my boy Jason Ramsey, how we doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today, Lucas?
Yeah, we're doing good, man. We're doing good. Back in the
Thanks for
day,
having me.
yeah, hey, I had to get one of my favorite guys to talk hockey with. He's always got a strong opinion, and he's not afraid to let people hear it either.
That's right. That's right. My Twitter, I'm always being called a clown on Twitter for a reason,
That's right. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, back in the day, back in the high school day, Jason and I, along with a couple other buddies, used to have a hockey podcast together called The Weekly
Yep.
Check.
Yep.
That was a
Fun
good
time.
time. Yep. Nothing like during school time recording a podcast.
Yep. Better than anything else we were doing there.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But anyway, so we're going to keep that tradition going today. We're going to talk some hockey. There's been a lot of off-season moves that have gone down, some trades, free agent signings, this, that, and the other. But before we get into that, obviously, Jason, you are a Colorado Avalanche fan. So
Yep, big time.
let's just what got you into hockey? Like what was your you're a big sports fan all around, and I know that, but I think we can all agree hockey is certainly number one for you. What made that for you?
Yeah. So, growing up, that was when the Avs were good, right? So, it was always on TV. It's kind of like, football now. It's always on TV. So, just watching the Avs, watching Sakic, Forsberg, Hayduk, Waugh, how could you not like those guys? And now, that fandom has just grown and grown, throughout the years, seeing guys like Paul Stastny, Matt Duchene, Ryan O'Reilly play for the Avs. Now we're in a way better situation. We got Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, the list goes on, right? My boy Nazem Kadri, in addition, like Brandon Saad that just came on the team. Like, this team is poised for some cup runs. Came up a little short. A lot of people like to blame the injuries. I'm not one of those to blame the injuries. You still got to win games, but I think we're on the right track.
Yep. We were one. We were. It was just. I was watching that game 7, obviously, and let me tell you, when you go from a high of all highs to absolute heartbreak in quite literally a matter of seconds, folks, that is what happened in Game 7. Scored the go-ahead goal, and 10 seconds later we were tied and going in overtime and we lost. So that's cool.
Yep. And that's that's typical this coaching staff. They like to blow the leads. They let things get out of control. But again, so people like to blame the injuries. Again, the Avs had 3 leads in that game. They should have won. It's end of story. They have to keep the lead. So hopefully that'll be in the next season. But yeah, man, just watching the Avs. I mean, it's a fun team to watch. How can you not be a fan of them?
Right. So a couple more questions here. First off, all-time favorite Avalanche?
Ooh, all-time? I got to say Nathan McKinnon. He's kind of sticking up there. Joe Sakic is a great guy. He's taken over on the GM side of things and doing a fantastic job. But I just think Nathan McKinnon has a skill that they never got to reach to. It's a different game now, right? So I think these guys are a little more skilled. I'm a big fan of Cale Makar, but it'll have to go McKinnon, Makar, and then I love me some Nazem Kadri.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, I like it. And then all-time favorite NHL player that is not a member of the Avalanche. Tough question.
Okay.
Tough question.
Now could they have been an Avalanche and now they're gone, or just have never been on the Avs?
They could be on the Avs, but they have to have spent a majority of their career not on the Avs.
Not on the Avs. Okay, I got to say Jerome McGinley.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I think he was here for a season or two, but he was in Calgary and then he jumped around a couple teams towards the end there, but he was a joy to watch too. So, I mean, shit. The snapshots and the wrist shots there were just killer. So
yeah, they were.
I was actually at his 600th goal game against the Kings. I was there. Yeah. Wow. Perks of the couple years season ticket holder here.
Little minor
Yeah, I'd
flex.
probably say again there's Ovechkin and Crosby, and now it's McDavid that you love to watch. But I
Yep.
think all time it's got to be again.
Yeah, I
So
like that. I like that. That's a good pick. So we're gonna get into some hockey news now. So like I mentioned, we're not gonna go through every single NHL offseason move because this would be like a 5-hour podcast. So we're gonna highlight some of the bigger ones. We're gonna go through some trades, and hopefully we don't miss too big of ones. But if we do, oh well. Sorry about it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, so we're going to get into it here. First off, we're going to start into some winners and losers in this offseason so far. Now, this is based off of fansided.com, so this is not our list that we made. So we're just going off of it kind of as a reference. We'll talk about some of those ones and then kind of decide for ourselves, what we thought about it. So their first winner, they had Alex Pietrangelo. I think we can both agree that this was, if you're Alex Pietrangelo, you got to be pretty happy. 30 years old, you got a 7-year deal, $61 million. I mean, that's big time. I'm assuming you're on the same idea as me here.
Yeah, I mean that's a winner for him all around. I mean, you've kind of seen it in the NHL the past couple of years as they hand out these big contracts to these guys, and then towards the end they're buying them out because I mean he's going to be 37 by the time this deal's done. I tell you, when he's 35, his cap hits 8.8 million. I mean, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? So obviously this is a winner. And like I've said, when Vegas came into the league, they're always going to be there for free agents because it's a market that attracts people, right? And so, like the Avs lost out to New York, those markets, are going to bring bigger names. A winner for sure is Alex Pietrangelo. We'll get into a little trade later, but I don't know if this was a very good move for the Golden Knights. I would have rather them kept Nate Schmidt, but again, you go fishing for the Stanley Cup winner, the big name, right? So, it definitely is a winner for him.
Yeah, Pietrangelo's he's been a solid player in this league for a number of years now, and I would tend to agree with you. I think the first 4 or 5 years, he'll probably be like what we're used to seeing from Alex Pietrangelo. And I mean, obviously, it'd be cool to see him ball out those 7 years. I don't think,
like except for against the Avs.
Except for against the Avs, right? That makes
sense.
Obviously.
You're exactly right. Those first couple of years, he will be worth that 8.8. But towards the end, I'm not sure he's going to be worth it. And that's where we have a cap, right? So how is Vegas going to handle that contract towards the end? I wouldn't be surprised to see a buyout on that. But for right now, it's looking good for Pietrangelo for sure.
Over 700 games in his career, 109 goals and 341 assists for 450 points in his career. So the Knights are certainly a team that is trying to. They're going for the cup. Obviously, everyone remembers our inaugural season losing in the Stanley Cup to the Washington Capitals, and they've made some deeper playoff runs since then, but they haven't been able to get back there.
I think that comes with their market. They want to be, they're new, but they want to be winners. Like that's what Vegas is, right? So, I mean, you see it with the Raiders coming in. They're like, you have to be good. You have to push for it. And so that's why I think they made that signing.
Yep. So now we'll go to a loser that they had here for the Arizona Coyotes. They obviously had Taylor Hall last year after getting him from the New Jersey Devils and subsequently having him leave in the offseason to Buffalo Sabres, whom we'll get to in a second, 1 year, $8 million. So they signed guys like Johan Larsson, Dryden Hunt, Tyler Pitlick, and obviously they still have Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's the guy there. He has been for a number of years now, but that is the guy. What, especially, and we'll talk about Taylor Hall separately by himself, but just as far as the Arizona Coyotes are thinking here, to see that he signed 1 year, only $8 million. What do you think the reasoning was of why they did not bring him back? Because it certainly could not have been a money situation.
Right. I think it's more along the lines of the hockey development team there in Coyotes.
Sure.
Their GM, they're having problems with their GM, their owners having problems. That's where it all stems from. Is you went out and you traded a bunch of stuff and you hoped that this guy was going to take you in. Now the Coyotes did have a good season. They
Yep, they
met the
did.
high-powered Avs. Right. There's not a whole lot of teams that when the Avs were healthy they could stick with them. I mean, it was evident that the Coyotes could not. I mean, they had a couple games that were 7-1, right? So, but you would have liked to see them probably try to keep Taylor Hall for another season, because with a 1-year deal, you can ship him out at the trade deadline if he's not there for you, right? And you can get some of the stuff that you traded for back a little bit. But again, I think it's up in the offices in Arizona, and they got to get that stuff together. You're not going to sign guys. You're not going to sign big guys if you have
Right.
GM problems. And, that's kind of why they brought in the new GM in Doug Armstrong. He will be better. But I just thought it was too late to salvage the Taylor Hall. And the Coyotes lost a couple draft picks for their cheating things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, now you're out a bunch of draft picks. You got to get that back going. And they still have Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I thought they might trade him. If they traded him, that would be a big loss for them. I don't think that would have been a smart move. So I'm glad they kept him. Doug Armstrong is going to turn it around, but that's why Taylor Hall wasn't there. It's because I can't remember the GM's name, but he wasn't very good. So,
and that was actually going to be my next question, talking about Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That in his career so far in Arizona, he's obviously been a constant. He's been the most consistent player that the franchise has had for a number of years now. But Arizona as a team, they haven't been. They've had years where they are the worst team in hockey, but they had years like this where, obviously they didn't do much in the playoffs, but they made the playoffs. So if you're Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I don't see him, he doesn't seem like this type of player, but do you get to a point where you're like, you know what, show me that we're in it to win it, or trade me, like get rid of me, because they're a very inconsistent up and down franchise.
I think that was a little bit of his thing. I mean, he set a deadline to it. He said, "Look, if you guys are going to trade me by this day. If not, forget it. I'm here." Right? So he gave them their opportunity. They couldn't find a suitor. He's there. He's all in.
Yeah.
When you look at some of I mean, they got a young team there. Clayton Keller, not a guy that gets a lot of press, but he's good. They went and got Phil Kessel. I mean, sells tickets, right? That's the lady told me down there when I went and saw the ad. She's like, "There's a lot of people buying tickets to come watch Phil Kessel." So Larson sees it. He's sticking to it, but he said, "Look, if you guys want to trade me, I get it, but I'm only giving you till this day. Otherwise, I'm here in Arizona. Let's do this thing." So, I just don't think they could get what they wanted, and so he's staying put. And I think that's a good move for Arizona. I think that's just too far of a step back. They're still moving forward. They're not too terribly bad. They just had a bad GM or an inexperienced GM, and they'll fix that. But they're on the right way.
Yeah. So we'll move into another winner here, the Buffalo Sabres. They were kind of a big name so far, and this is where Taylor Hall will come into play now, because they signed him 1 year, $8 million deal to the Buffalo Sabres. First off, do you like this move for the Buffalo Sabres? And if you're Taylor Hall, do you like this move for him? So two separate questions here.
Okay, for your first question, I love the move for the Buffalo Sabres. Here's why. There's no risk to it, right? You have a 1-year deal. If you are terrible, like I believe they're going to be, all right, you could trade him at the trade deadline and get way more for him than you could have got him, elsewhere, right? Now you got to take Jack Eichel into effect. He hasn't been very happy in Buffalo. You're showing Jack Eichel that, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to get some bigger names for you. Hey, we could only agree on 1 year, but it shows Jack Eichel that, hey, we want to get to a winning way. So I think it's a win for Buffalo all around. There's no real risk. It's not a 7-year deal where they're locked into a, $9 million cap hit. It's 1 year. You're not good. You trade them at the trade deadline and you get you get picks or whatnot back for him, and you turn those picks into something for Jack Eichel. So yeah, it's a win for Buffalo. Is it a win for Taylor Hall? I'm not sure. I think taking the 1-year deal was a little smart due to the COVID situation. I think his market probably wasn't as good as it could have been if there was a regular season had played out.
Yeah.
But because he would have been a big staple down there in Arizona, they would have got a lot of press for making the playoffs with Taylor Hall. They would have been a team to watch. They probably would have not met the Avs in the first round. They probably would have been able to, beat one of those Pacific teams or whatnot. So I don't know if it's a win for him. I have to see, because I think it might be in terms of going out there and getting a better contract due to the COVID situation. But I mean, he said he wanted to win, and when the Avs come along and offer you 6.5 mil, and you choose to go for another 1.5 and go play in Buffalo, I don't know. I don't know. You would think that you would go to the Avs, rack up these points with the point getters that the Avs have, and then cash in on that deal. He probably would have signed a 1-year deal in Colorado. It was the Buffalo because I think he knew the coach there or something. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't think that it could have projected him as much up as if he would have taken a little bit less and went with the Avs or something. Not just the Avs, but just a better team that he could have put up more points. So it's a win for Buffalo. Is it a win for Taylor Hall? I'm not quite sure. You'll have to see next year what happens. If he gets dealt at the deadline, you'll have to see, because if he gets dealt to a non-contender, I mean, I'm sure he's not going to be very happy about that. So, who knows?
Yeah. And I definitely would have thought that the Avalanche would have been kind of a solid suitor for him, obviously for the reasons that you had mentioned. But for players, first year with the Avalanche, they played well. Valeri Nichushkin, he was nothing, and he came to the Avalanche. He was an extremely solid player with us. And then obviously bring in Nazem Kadri, who, don't get me wrong, was a great player before, but he came to the Avalanche and just, I think we both
took it to another level. Yeah,
exactly. I think we both thought he could play well, but like to the level that he did, I don't even know if I thought he was going to play that well, and he did. So part of that, I would have thought maybe Taylor Hall would want to come there, see, these guys in their first year have had a lot of success with the Avalanche. Maybe I can have that too.
Yeah, exactly. You said it. Those two great examples there. You come to the Avs, you get these points, or Vegas too. You go to one of these teams, you get these points, and then you cash in on the deal. I just think that he, maybe he thinks he can play more time in Buffalo, so he can, get more points. I maybe get that fact, because the Avs are stacked, right, and so is Vegas. To go to a team like that, and everybody has cap issues, right? Yeah. So, you gotta kind of stay around that. But for a 1-year deal, it's not a very big, risk that you're taking on there. I just thought that he would go to somebody that would probably propel him points wise, right? So, we saw that with Nichushkin and Kadri there. So we'll see. We'll see what it brings for Taylor Hall for sure.
And now kind of a similar situation we talked about with Oliver Ekman-Larsson with Jack Eichel. Now he has been fairly vocal as of lately of his not being happy with the Buffalo Sabres. I can't imagine the Sabres would trade him, but same thing. If Buffalo continues to be a bottom feeder of the league, will Jack Eichel just kind of force his hand and be like, get me the heck out of here because y'all suck right now?
Yeah, I can see that from Jack Eichel. He's kind of that player. He's like a Matt Duchene, and I think Buffalo would look at what Sakic did with the Duchene trade and say, look, I just got to look at how Sakic built it up. This is one guy. How much can I get for that one guy, and can we build up, some generation talent from that one guy, right? Yeah. So we'll see. A part of that Matt Duchene trade was Kyle Turris. He's now gone from the Nashville Predators, just to go off on the tangent real quick. Yep. In that deal was Sam Girard. So basically, Sam Girard came to Colorado for nothing. Yes. So you kind of got to look at that and say, what can I get for this player? Yeah, Eichel's been very vocal about it. I think that's why it's a win for Buffalo, because they're showing him that they'll sign people, but I just don't think Buffalo is very good to overcome. Yeah, you can have two superstars there, but what's your
Yeah,
defense look like? What's your goaltender situation look like? You
yeah.
know, and I couldn't really tell you if they who's on their defense or who their goalie is, right? So it's not a big name, so they don't outperform everybody else. You know what I mean?
They obviously also have brought in Eric Stahl and Cody Eakin as well this offseason. So certainly on the offensive side of things, that forwards go at least, they're trying to be competitive there.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think that's Buffalo showing Jack that, hey, we'll go out and we'll get some names here for you. You know what I mean? But again, and like I've seen in Colorado, you can't have a one line wonder. It's not going to
Oh,
take you very far. You need some depth there, and some of those guys I don't think are on very long deals. So for Eichel, it might be like if we're not going to win in the next couple of years, then I'm out. You know what I mean? So.
yeah. We got the Boston Bruins. They have them as a loser, and I can agree with this. I think the big reason why they are a loser is they let Torrey Krug walk. He obviously ended up signing with the St. Louis Blues, and we'll get to that signing at some point here. 7 years, $45 million with St. Louis. A team like Boston, who, okay, Tuukka Rask, that situation there, obviously leaving to be with his family, certainly. I mean, it's understandable. I think we can all understand that. But it's definitely sucked for the Boston Bruins. A lot of people had them winning the Stanley Cup. They didn't get out of the second round, ended up losing to Tampa in 5 games. Are you surprised that Boston wasn't a little more aggressive in trying to keep Torrey Krug there, or are you kind of not surprised to let him go?
No, I was totally surprised that they let him to walk in the terms of how they did. I found out on Twitter that there wasn't a whole lot of negotiation back and forth. It was really minimum or nothing from the Boston Bruins. And you got to look back at what Torrey Krug has done for your organization over the last couple of years. Like, he's propelled you to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yeah, you guys lost that one against the Blues, but I mean, he was there. He was a big name. He had some big hits. He's a clutch player, and you just kind of let him walk. You didn't even see, you weren't even talking with him. And that was the biggest shock to me. I understand free agency comes with all its different things, and players may come and go, right? And nothing's ever set in stone. But to not even basically
Yeah,
try to
right.
keep him back, I mean, I just didn't understand that from the Boston Bruins at all. And we, Chara, I don't know what Chara's going to do. I think he's coming back for another year. I'm not sure yet. I think he's waiting out the COVID situation a little bit. Now you've lost two of your best defensemen. Like, what's next, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, they have a good goalie back there in Tuukka Rask. He wasn't there, family issues. We all get that.
yeah.
But to let Torrey Krug rock is a whole different side of a whole different ball game there. I mean, you didn't have to, if you didn't want to go 7 years on him, that's fine. But to just not even really have any
Right.
negotiation, that was the biggest shock to me. So yeah, I do think they're a loser on that deal. I think the Blues are they in there? Are they in the winner or losers? I think the Blues will be a winner for that specific deal.
Okay. Yeah. I don't
For that.
see them on this list that they have here, but I would agree with you is that I also do think that the St. Louis Blues are a winner, absolutely.
Uh, because look at who they replaced, Petrangelo, right? You're thinking, oh man, like that's a big replacement. But Petrangelo's 30, so
Mhm.
you're getting a very younger Torrey Krug, who's I not very younger, but a younger Torrey Krug who's gonna
Right.
do the exact same or more than Petrangelo. So I think it's tough to lose a guy like Petrangelo for your organization. But I mean, they filled the hole quickly, and I think they got an upgrade a little bit in
Yeah.
terms of age. They're both very good defensemen, but I just think the Blues winners in that realm of, okay, see you Petrangelo, but hello Torrey Krug. I'll tell you this right here. You heard it here first. Look for St. Louis to name Ryan O'Reilly captain. That's my prediction.
See that. I could see that. I can see
Yep.
it. He's been there a number of years now, and he's been a pretty focal point of their offense, and I could see it.
Yep. I think that's who they're going with. So
They have any Tim Hortons in St. Louis or no?
No, that's just the Canadian.
Oh,
Yeah,
is that a Canada thing? Okay, just making
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Um, so we'll get into one more winner here, and then we'll move on to the trades list here. The Detroit Red Wings here, they have them listed as a winner. The biggest reason why is they signed winger Bobby Ryan to a 1-year deal worth $1 million. Now he's been in the league 13 years, 555 points in his career. Um, I This is interesting for me. And obviously, and they also brought in Nemestikov as well too, which is
Yeah, yeah.
great. You love to see that.
Trader,
Yeah,
whatever.
Trader, who also signed a $2 or $4 million deal. Do you think that as far as the Detroit Red Wings go, are they on the right path up? Because they have been bad for a while now. Are they kind of getting towards the right way here, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think when Steve Yzerman came over from the Lightning, I think that was their start to go back up. Yeah, they've had some bad seasons. Specifically, this last one was pretty terrible. But I
Uh,
mean, what do you expect when when you're good for so long? You don't have high draft picks. So in Detroit's case, I mean, 20s plus years of in the playoffs, you're not drafting 1 through 10, right? So you got to kind of start and go back up. Bobby Ryan's a good signing for them. Nemestikov will fit in just well there. I know they signed a couple other littler contracts there, which will help them out. But they did sign Thomas Greiss, the goalie, out of the Islanders. The Islanders brought on Varlamov, and they, Greiss and Varlamov had this, nice 1-2 duo there. But that's going to be better for them. I know Jimmy Howard has been a kind of a staple there for a couple of years, but Jimmy Howard has just lost it. And so I think that'll help them out. Like I've said, if you don't have a good goalie, you're not going to go far in this league. You can have as much star power up front as you want. If you
yeah.
don't have a decent goalie behind you, it's not going to work out for you. We see it all the time. We see teams in the playoffs make big runs because their goalies are hot. May not be the most elite team in terms of players up front, but their goalie takes over and wins. They look at the Dallas Stars, Qdoba. I know
Yeah.
that's not his name, Qudobin, but Qdoba takes them, way farther than they should have. So, you just got to see it there. So I think the Detroit Red Wings are on the way up. I mean, they still got a ways to go, but yeah,
Right.
they're headed that way.
And the perfect example of the hot goaltender situation, two of them here. Jordan Binnington, who was ginormous reason why the St. Louis Blues won the Cup, and obviously this team did not win the Cup, but the New York Islanders, like you mentioned, with Semyon Varlamov, who had just left the Avalanche. His career was, they weren't quite sure where he was going to go with it, and he balled this entire year for Islanders, and they were a huge reason why they made a deep playoff run.
Yep. Had a couple bad games in there, but I mean, most goalies do, right? So, I'm very happy that Varlamov went and found it because the Avs gave up on him, last year, and I thought that he could have still played, but again, you have cap reasons, right? So, but yeah, exactly. If you just have to have a decent goalie, it doesn't have to be an all-star by all means, but they have to show up when it matters. You know what I mean? You let in a couple easy goals and now the momentum is so swayed in hockey, that there's only a couple guys that can turn a game themselves. Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Crosby, Ovechkin. Those guys can take over the game just themselves. But if you don't have a goalie, it doesn't matter, right? They can only be on the ice. Those guys in the forward line can only be on the ice for so long.
Mm-hmm. So we'll get into some trades now for this offseason, some bigger name trades that have happened. One of the first ones that we saw, the St. Louis Blues talking about trading goaltender Jake Allen to the Montreal Canadiens, him and a 7th-round pick. They received a 3rd-round pick from Washington and a 7th-round pick from Chicago for that. Now, this makes sense, obviously. Jordan Binnington's a guy that's going to be their dude who they're going to hopefully roll with for a while. Um, do you like this move, I guess, as far as the Montreal Canadiens go? You got that whole Carey Price situation there kind of up in question. But who do you like more on this side?
Listen, I'm a big Carey Price fan, okay? I would love Carey Price on the Avs. Won't happen because of the cap hit, but I would love him. I think Montreal realized that they need somebody that can step up. Carey Price can't play, you know, the amount of games that you want him to and make those deep runs in the playoffs. I think the Canadians are trying to turn it around too. I think they're on that right step there. I think this was a good move for them in terms of depth wise. Jake Allen's a good goalie who will be there and who can back up Carey Price for the games that they need. And I think it takes a big workload off of Carey Price, and I think that it helps Montreal in the longer run. When you're starting goalie doesn't have to do so much in the regular season just to get you to that playoffs. That's when you see these goalies going hot in the playoffs because their workload in the regular season isn't as much as these guys that take 50 shots a night and play almost every night. So
Minnesota Wild have been pretty active so far this offseason. Not only that's right. That's a good point. Gotta remind our Wild friends every once in a while about that when they get a little bit of big heads out here. But a couple trades that happened early on in the offseason, they let a couple guys go in free agency. They traded Ryan Donato to the Sharks for a third-round pick, and also they traded Devin Dubnyk and a seventh-round pick to the Sharks for a fifth-round pick. So, first off, does it look like, now obviously no team is ever going to in any professional sport that they are tanking. No one is ever going to admit that. But does it kind of look like that maybe the Wild are trying to do that, trying to blow things up, start from scratch, say we're going to suck, get some good picks hopefully with the lottery? What do you think here if you're looking at this situation?
Well, I think the Wild are still trying to dig out of their two ginormous contracts that they locked themselves into with Parise and Suter that have not worked out for them in any realm whatsoever. And they got Nick Bonino from the Nashville Predators. That's a good move for them to kind of stay a little bit active there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they've seen a need that we can't compete in the Central with the teams that are in the Central. They can't because they suck. And I think that's what you're seeing there is I think they're not going to tell you they're rebuilding like Chicago just did, but I think they're kind of needing to, they have Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. They're not going to tell those guys, hey, we're rebuilding. They're going to quietly do it, and I think this is the way they're quietly doing it. So,
yeah. Personally, I'm fine with seeing Devin Dubnyk leave the division. I can't stand that guy at all. I don't like him. He's a goon. But welcome to the Minnesota Wild. But no, anyways, I would agree, and I think there comes a point in time where, when comes the point where you kind of just look where you are, and you kind of mentioned it too. Look where you are and realize, you know what, we can't compete. And sure, they made the bubble, one of the 8 teams that compete for the playoffs, but nothing came of it, obviously.
Right.
So I like it. I think if you are not competing, I'm not even necessarily saying you have to be competing for a Stanley Cup every single year, but if you're not consistently competing for the top of the division, a high seed in the playoffs, just a deep team, you kind of got to say, let's start from scratch and let's blow things up and see what we can do here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've seen they picked high past couple of years because they're not in the playoffs, right? So I think, again, when you look and you're like, I think last year it was the Avs and the Wild kind of together. But I think when you look around and you see the other Central teams stacking their pieces and getting better, I think when you notice, you're like, okay, well, there's not a whole lot I can do here because I got 20 million in 2 guys. But maybe we can move some things around. And I think that's kind of like most of those guys were traded for draft picks. I think that's what you see there. That's what they're trying to do is kind of hey, we need to develop a little bit more so that we can compete with the likes of, Nashville and Colorado and Vegas. So,
yeah.
And Dallas is in the division too, right? So
right, yeah, a lot of deep teams, that's for sure. So the Montreal Canadiens traded Max Domi and a third-round pick to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Josh Anderson. Domi, he's a guy that's been a pretty solid piece for the Canadiens. Obviously, Montreal as a team has not really been competing for a little bit now. I like this a lot for the Blue Jackets. They're always a team that it seems like they're a few pieces away from really figuring it out. I'm not saying that, they now have Max Domi and they're the Stanley Cup favorites by any means, but I just feel they're a team that one move at a time, I think they are really close to being a really solid team in the NHL.
yeah, well, I mean, you look at their turnover, right? They had Duchesne, they had Panarin, they had Bobrovsky, but then they've met, and we all know that those guys were rentals, right? But they've kind of built it slowly. They're a team. They are a team. I like this move for the Blue Jackets. I think Domi's going to exceed well there. I think the Canadians just didn't have the right fit for him. And that's why I think that trade happened. But yeah, I love it a lot for Columbus for sure.
The Senators of Ottawa acquired Matt Murray, goaltender from the Penguins, for Jonathan Gruden and a second-round pick. How do you feel about this? You like this for the Ottawa Senators getting Murray?
I think Ottawa needed a goalie. The Craig Anderson days were coming to an end up there. I don't like that they immediately signed him to this monster contract. I think that was a little bit of an overpayment, considering some of the free agents that you had out there. Holtby to be number one. I know Lundqvist was there, but he's not really a high-end goalie anymore. I'm sorry to say, but he's just not. But they went out and traded and then paid him big bucks. It'll be all right for Ottawa. I just don't think that Ottawa is in the position to have that kind of goalie. We'll see. It's a good move for sure. I just don't think Ottawa has the supporting cast in front of them to actually make a run with that goalie.
It's an interesting fit. We always talk about, and you were kind of mentioning it before too, how good goaltenders can take you far. A lot of that also is the majority of the time, unless in rare circumstances, the defense in front of you can really make or break the goaltender, that's behind them. So yeah. I kind of agree. I think Murray is a really solid goaltender, but is he going to have to be bailing them out every single game, 55, 60 shots?
Right.
Or is he going to?
And I don't think that Matt Murray has that in him. He's a good goalie. Don't get me wrong, but he's not. He doesn't have 60 shots a night in him. And I don't know who they turn to be better than that. You know what I mean? So.
The Winnipeg Jets acquiring Paul Stastny from the Golden Knights for Carl Dahlstrom and a 2022 conditional fourth-round pick. Stastny, after his long tenure time with the Avalanche, has kind of been bouncing around now from place to place.
Yep.
Regardless, still a solid player in this league. He finds a way to manage. He's obviously not at his elite days anymore, but he's at the point in his career where he's maximizing as much as he can give out right now. And I really like this for the Jets.
Yeah, so, Stastny from the Avs went to the Blues and then went to the Jets and then I think went to the Knights. And so he's back there. It's a cap dump for the Knights. They needed to get some cap space off because they were going after Pietrangelo. I like the move for the Jets. Obviously, that's probably where Stastny preferred to go. That could afford him, right? So, it's a good move for the Jets for sure. They're still, Patrick Laine's still there. They're still a good team. Yeah. Connor Hellebuck won the Vezina, they're there. So again, when you go back to Minnesota, you got to look at your central. You got the Avs, who are a good team. You got Dallas, who's a good team. You got the Jets, who is a good team. Chicago's been a great team for a long time, but now they're in a rebuild, right? So you got to kind of look and see, okay, well, in my division, I have to compete for that fourth spot because I know those three teams are going to be competing for 1, 2, and 3. So how do I make the playoffs in that last spot? And I think, that's part of the division right now. And when Seattle comes in next year, Arizona is going to scoot over. So now you got Arizona, who made the playoffs, right? Arizona's above some of those teams, even though they're, you're like, oh, well, Arizona sucks. Well, they got some players there. They could be eyeing for that 4th seed, right? So now all of a sudden your playoff window gets smaller and smaller. How do you compete with these teams, right? So, but it's good for the Jets for sure.
Yeah. Colorado Avalanche. This is going to be the next 3 topics of discussion. Joe Sakic's at it again, folks. We will talk about the first one here with the Chicago Blackhawks. Avalanche trading defenseman Nikita Zadorov and defenseman Anton Lindholm to the Chicago Blackhawks for forward Brandon Saad and defenseman Dennis Gilbert. I like this. Now, Nikita Zadorov, I liked him. I was a fan of him. He was a big hitter. He was the Cody McLeod of our team. That he's going to be kind of protecting our little guys, but
he was a gigantic defensive liability.
He was,
and that's why he was shipped out.
Right, and for the fact that the Avalanche have a really solid young defensive cast already with Girard, Makar obviously, and they have some guys waiting in the wings as well to come up. Byram and those guys as well too. So as much as and like I said, don't get me wrong, I don't think Zadorov is a phenomenal defender. He's a big hitter and he steps up for our guys, and I like that about him. But getting a guy like Brandon Saad, I don't know much about Dennis Gilbert. Maybe you can fill me in a little more on him. But I love this for the Avs. I thought it was a great deal.
Yeah. So here's how I go. I'm so excited. The Avs are a big name. They think they're going to get some big name free agencies. I'm riding this high, right? And Joe Sakic signs nobody, right? And you're like, phew. And then I started hearing from my sources that, hey, Sakic hasn't done his press conference. He's not done yet. I'm like, okay, this gets me interested, all right? And so Taylor Hall was still out there at this time. We knew Pietrangelo was going to Vegas more than likely. So I'm thinking, all right, we still got a shot at Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall announced his Buffalo and it goes straight back down. But then I hear again, Sakic's not done yet. All of a sudden, Sakic trades for Brandon Saad. And I'm like, okay, this gives Nazem Kadri, a great left winger who has won a Stanley Cup. He's actually won 2, 3. I think. I don't know if he was a part of all 3. I think he was a part of all 3 for sure too. He's a Stanley Cup winner. He's going to come in here. He's going to tell these guys, hey, this is how we need to close out games. We need to win. This is a great trade for the Avs. Dennis Gilbert is more of a depth role there, just in case somebody gets hurt. I know Sakic probably saw the need for the depth. It was not there in the playoffs. They didn't have like a normal. You couldn't call guys up from Loveland. You're in the bubble, right? You're stuck with who's in the bubble. We saw that with the goalies for sure. But there was a little, fourth line. We didn't have the best of guys out there. Matt Calvert was hurt. So he's a tough guy. He's a tough hitter. He'll fight. You should look up some of his fights. They're amazing. It's a great trade for the Avs. They had a lot of pieces on the defense they could get rid of. Chicago could take that on. Chicago did keep some of the salary on Brandon Saad as well. I believe Brandon Saad is only on a 1-year deal now. I think he's in the last term of his deal, so there's not a whole lot of risk. I don't see the Avs shipping him out for anything at the trade deadline. I don't think that the Avs are in that position. But, hey, if they're good, maybe Brandon Saad says, all right, I'm coming back. I'll come back a little cheaper to come back. You know what I mean? He said he's always wanted to play on the Avalanche. That's one of his teams that he loved to play for. Now he's here. Let's see what he can do. Again, I think here's the problem with the Avs is they didn't have that secondary power play unit that would be good. Now they have guys that can run that second power play unit that will be good. So I like this trade for the Avs. It's sad to see Zadorov go, but look at who they have there. Yeah. They're just fine without him. So
Avalanche were not done yet, folks. They made another trade, trading defenseman trading forward at AJ Greer for defenseman Kyle Burrows from the New York Islanders. Again, I think this is another play. Now, if I'm wrong, definitely let me know. But it seems kind of more of a depth role for the defense. But you can't have too many guys. You can't.
Yeah, it's a death roll, and AJ Greer had that run in with the law or whatever. I think they were fighting some dudes at the bar or whatnot. Whatever the case was there, the Avalanche and Joe Sakic kind of don't play that game, so we knew there was a short leash for him. We never really saw Greer. I mean, look at the prospect pool that the Avs have on. They have Alex Newhook. Just to name one there. They have so much depth that's playing in Loveland. They don't need him. So I think it was to get a little bit more of that defensive depth there. Your next trade that I think you're going to say is probably the bigger trade defensive-wise for the Avs.
And that is the one that we're going to get into now. They weren't done with the Islanders. They acquired defenseman Devin Taves for a 2021 second-round pick and a 2022 second-round pick. Again, I like this a lot. Taves is a guy that has been a solid player with the Islanders, and we are pretty sure there is no relation to Jonathan Taves, but we can't.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well, we'll take your word for it.
So if you look at the Islanders, they're in a cap trouble, but the Avs have a little bit of room. So Devin Taves isn't signed; he's a restricted free agent. He has an arbitration hearing. I assume that the Avs will get that done. It'll probably be in the $3 million range. They'll have plenty of money for that, and the bonuses that Cale Makar will hit because Cale Makar is amazing. But you look at another puck-moving defenseman that can join the rush, that can score goals, but this one can play defense, whereas Zadorov couldn't. I think now the Avs, if you look at the Avs, if they have Ian Cole, Eric Johnson, Sam Girard, Cale Makar, Devin Taves, Ryan Graves, that's a six defensive that you can throw out there against anybody in the league at any time. Any of those guys. If somebody goes down, you're still good. But that's why I don't think the Avs address their goalie situation. I think they address their defense. Look, that's a pretty stacked defense, to say the least. And a lot of those guys aren't really making big bucks. Makar's contract ends after this year. I assume that he'll get paid. But we'll shed some fat someplace else. So.
Also, not to mention with the young guys still waiting, and Connor Timmins, who's played a little bit, and Bowen Byram as well too, who is the big guy for the Avalanche right now. So maybe he'll make an appearance this year.
Yeah, I think they might have seen that Bo wasn't quite ready yet. Obviously they're not going to rush somebody, right? They're in no position to rush. I think they've seen that with Tyson Jost. They rushed Tyson Jost. They should have not. There was no reason to rush Tyson Jost up. They did, and he's just not good, for where he was picked. I assume he'll move on to Seattle. I assume that's where he'll end up next. But for the Avs, I think it's okay. Well, we don't have to push him, so we're not going to. And I think that's why they went out and got a Devin Taves. The Islanders were in a situation they had to get rid of him. Okay, Joe Sakic comes in and says, "Hey, I'll help you out. Here's a couple draft picks. Let me have them." And if somebody were to get injured, we still got those other guys, Connor Timmins, who can come up and play big time minutes for us. So the Avs are definitely a team poised for the Cup. I would say that if the Avs don't make the Cup this year, that would be a tremendous disappointment. They don't have to win it, okay, because getting there and winning it are two different things. But if they get out in the second round again, I got to say that there's got to be some changes behind the bench, because this is a stacked team, and I don't think that Joe Sakic's going to take it lightly if they don't perform. Their goalies are okay. Francouz did amazing in the regular season, but then I think he got injured, and I think that was shown in the playoffs. He just didn't play very well, and then he was injured, right? And so, I think the defense in front of them are good enough to win a cup. So we'll see. Hopefully, I cross my fingers. I want them to win a cup where we can be in the stands, though, so I can be there.
Absolutely, and you know what? And I want them to win a cup too. With me living in Minnesota now, do you know how great that would be? I have all of the leverage in the world. All of the leverage in the world.
Yeah. Yep. And every day for the whole year until the Avs are back in the cup, you tell them, "Hey, Stanley Cup champs, baby."
Yes, sir.
Yeah, every day. Good morning. Good morning. Stanley Cup champs for the third time. How many you got? This is a big fat 0.
And then
So,
the final kind of big trade that has kind of happened this offseason, Golden Knights trading Nate Schmidt, defenseman, to the Vancouver Canucks for a 2022 third-round pick. You obviously kind of hinted at it earlier with the Pietrangelo signing that you kind of maybe would have wanted to keep him. As far as the Canucks go, though, they're getting a good guy.
they're getting a great guy for cheap. What was that?
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was a draft pick. I don't remember what round. Third round? Oh. Yeah, that's cheap for Nate Schmidt. Obviously, he's going to have a contract coming up, right? But I mean, now you have Quinn Hughes and Nate Schmidt back there as your number one. Look, I understand this Makar Hughes battle. Hughes is still a very good defenseman. Kel Makar is just a little bit above him. But Nate Schmidt and Hughes will be great back there. Again, it's a salary dump, right? You're in a cap situation where you're in trouble, but you want a guy, so you have to get rid of somebody, and that's what you see there. Is I have to get rid of him to sign him, so here, take him, and we'll give you a third-round pick. I'm shocked they didn't get a little bit more for him, but I think that Nate would have probably been better for the Knights, but I get that market is, go for the big dogs, right? So that's what happens there. That's a steal for Vancouver. He'll be good in Vancouver. That's a no-lose situation for Vancouver. If Nate doesn't play like he plays, which I doubt will happen, they're only out a third-round pick, right? They could trade him and probably get more than that. So I think it's a great move for Vancouver, and it just unfortunately Vegas was in a cap crunch. They had to get rid of Schmidt and Stastny there, and unfortunately that's what happens when you go for the big fish. But I think they're happy there in Vegas. I don't know how it'll pan out. I didn't really think that in their series against Dallas they needed defense. I think they needed a little more. Well, I don't think they needed Alex Pietrangelo defense.
Sure, right.
I think they might have needed a little more forward help, and instead they just kind of got rid of Paul Stastny and Schmidt to sign Pietrangelo. I don't really know how that'll work there. They still got some great guys there. And Vegas isn't included in the expansion draft for Seattle, so They don't have to worry about losing somebody like the rest of the teams do. That's why you see a lot of 2-year deals, 1-year deals that were signed this year because of the expansion draft next season.
Right. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Vegas ends up doing this year if Pietrangelo pans out for them and to make a deep playoff run. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's about all of the pretty big offseason moves up to this date so far. Is there any that we missed that maybe you just thought of that you want to talk about, or you think we're probably good there?
No, I think those are the biggest ones. Just to name a few, Tyson Barrie was another big name.
Yep.
I'm not a very big Tyson Barrie fan, but Tyson Barrie went to the Oilers. The Oilers also got Kyle Turris.
Yes.
After he was bought out from Nashville. So the Oilers are kind of a little bit of a sleeper team that made a couple moves here or there that might, make them a little bit better. I would say, it'll probably be Vancouver, Vegas, and the Oilers top 3 in the Pacific, and then you'll probably have the Avs, the Jets, and the Stars top 3, and that'll probably be your top 6 in the West. Obviously, there will be those other teams fighting for those last couple spots, but I think those will be your top 6 over there for sure.
Yeah. I'm hoping the Avs are the number 1 in the Central. That'd be big time. I think.
Yep, I don't want them to win the President's Trophy though, because that's always bad luck.
Bad luck, yeah. It is.
You don't want that. I would like them to be number 1 though, in their division. That way they could have the home ice against that division opponent. And then when they play that second round, we want them to have that home ice for sure too. Especially if they're playing somebody like Dallas, or the Jets. Well, I was going to say Pepsi Center is pretty loud in the playoffs, but they just had a new naming deal. So the Ball Arena does get pretty loud. So does I'm sure so does Vegas and so does Winnipeg. We didn't have those home ice advantages that we will have next season.
Right.
Hopefully, right? But you know, I don't want them to have that tip top seed, but they need to be right there. So.
Well, that's the end of the show, Jason. I want to thank you for coming on. Always
Hey, thank
offering
you so
great
much.
NHL insight, as always. As always.
Yep. Hey, that's what I'm here for.
That is. So I guess this is a part of the show. You want to throw out some social media handles where the fans can find you at, talk some crap?
Yeah, so if you're a Minnesota Wild fan and you want to come see what a championship Twitter looks like, it's at Jason, but with a Y, so Jayson, and the last name is Ramsey, Ramscy. I change my name on Twitter every once in a while. Mine was Calder Kale when Kale McCarr won. I might have a little one for Saturday when Big Ten football's back. You never really know. Yeah, follow me there. That's where all my sports talk is. Very little political talk, so I am like very little, like none. So if you want some sports, come on in.
Yeah. I don't know too many people that are as active on Twitter as Jason is, and when it comes to sports talk. So even if you don't agree with what he says and you want to, call him out on it, do it. I mean, he's gonna bring it back. He'll bring it back.
I've been featured in 2 articles in the Athletic. Not to brag or anything, but I've been in there. Nothing like my boy over here on Fox. Not like my boy over here on Fox Sports, but hey, the Athletic. You know what I mean? They don't pick the chump change,
No, they don't.
So,
hey, we got potential, man. We got potential.
That's right. That's right. We do have potential. Absolutely correct.
Yeah. But anyways, folks, thanks for listening. If you want to follow the Dorton and Doetkott podcast Twitter handles, you can follow myself at Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D. If you want to follow the official Twitter page of the podcast, it is at DND_podcast, capital D's, capital P for that. So certainly do that. If you would like to be on a show like my boy Jason here, hit me up. Let me know. Maybe I'll hit you up. We'll figure it out. See if we can get something going here. But anyways, that is the end of the show.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Follow my Twitter if you want some sports bets, advice. I'm not the best sports bettor, but I have won in my time. So just saying there. Win some cash. I'm a big fan of the $2 parlays that pay out big.
That's right. Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
That's right, baby.
But anyways, folks, thank you for listening to this episode of the Dorton and Doetkott Debate podcast. And as for Jason and I, until next time, we are out.